Good evening, welcome. Welcome. Nice to see you, thanks for coming out tonight. It's good to be with you as we look at what we call Vision Night. We do this once a year. It's what used to be called an AGM, but we've conned you by calling it a Vision Night and convinced you to come. And we try to make it a bit more exciting than an AGM as well, I hope. So rather than painstakingly going through how many things I have bought in the office for the past year, we just do much more highlights of what's going on, rather than working through line by line of our budget. And so, but this is what this evening's going to look like. There's going to be different people contributing. It's not all going to be me. You're going to be pleased to hear, and I'm also pleased to hear. We're going to spend the first bit of the evening looking at the last sort of 12 months, what's been going on, what we've been going through. Rob's going to sort of lead us through some of the highlights, or things that we think are highlights. We discussed this as leaders in a leaders meeting last night, and so it's not everything we've done as a church, but it's some of the things, and so these are some of the things that we want to sort of rejoice and thank God for. And then at the end of that, we're going to pray, because it's always good to thank God for all that He is doing amongst us. But we don't just want to look back, because God leads us forward, and then we're going to do just that. We're going to look at some of the next steps, and what we're looking at as a church, as leaders, we believe we are moving towards. And so that's going to be a good bit for us to just hopefully build faith in where we think God is leading us as a church, what maybe the next 12 months or even longer might look like. And it's something where all of us are going to be involved in a sense, because I'd like to think if you're part of Pinehurst, we're going to see all of us take steps in God. And so that's something which will involve all of us. And then towards the end, I'm going to talk a little bit about the building project. Don't worry if you don't know what that is yet. I will do my best to explain it, and then I will look at the finance a little bit at the end as well, just so you get the big picture of where we are, what's going on. And then at the end of all that, I'm going to give you a chance to ask questions should you want to. You can ask any sort of questions, and Andy and Rob will answer those for you. And then I will pray at the end on the back of that. Is that all right? Fine, perfect. We've got that nailed. Well, Andrew's hiding up your own questions. Is that right? We decided that last night. He's up at the back. So, and then we'll pray again at the end and just sort of say, God, this is what we believe in, and just sort of show us the way as we seek Him in all things. So that's what it's going to look like. But once again, it's quite relaxed. So if you do want to ask a question partway through, go for it if something's not clear or needs explaining. But as I say, it's one of those evenings where I hope it's going to fuel faith amongst all of us for what God is doing. And just so you know as well, we are recording it. One or two have told me, and they have got legitimate reasons for not being here tonight. So I will send it on to those. Those that haven't got legitimate reasons, that's but they're giving up or something to get a hold of it. So that's a joke, by the way, for those who don't know me too well yet. No, so we record it because we want to be able to send it out so people can see it as well. But I think it's always better if you can do these things in person. So well done for coming out on a sunny evening. The good news is tomorrow is going to be even hotter, so you can enjoy the garden or something outside tomorrow night. And then over the weekend, up near 30, I've heard. So really nice temperature. So Rob, I'm going to hand over to you. If you can lead us through the first section, that will be great.
Thank you. Yeah, we did try and get Andy involved. Alice wasn't well last night when we were talking about it, but he managed to duck out of it. So you're afraid you've got Adam and the Elders, which sounds a bit like a 70s pop group, doesn't it? But I do promise we're not going to sing. Not until the end, and then we'll empty the place quickly. Yeah, as Adam said, I'm supposed to be looking back over last year. But before I do that, I'd just like to take a few minutes to go back a little bit further. It was 2017 when Adam and his family first came to Pinehurst. And I know, without going into detail, the first 12 to 18 months was, to put it mildly, difficult. Extremely difficult. We actually came back to Pinehurst in May 2019, and one of my memories, which I still recall, is coming in, and there were many fewer seats put out on those Sundays than we put out now, and the place looked so empty. I doubt we even managed to get 50, so deplete was it. And it was basically rebuilding a church. And it re-emphasised to me that that's what this was. It wasn't an old church. The building is decades old. The name, Pinehurst Community Church, is at least a decade old. But the church, the most important part of this whole operation, the church, the people, us, form a new church, a completely new church. And we have got some people who we're blessed to have who were here before, who can still remember that church. But many people here tonight are new, and that's been a really encouraging thing. But having been struggling for the first 12 to 18 months with issues, in March 2020, something happened, didn't it? Anybody remember what happened in March 2020? Yes, that's right. We had lockdown. And then we very quickly had to go online. And we all learned how to use Zoom to greater or lesser extent. Let's hope those days are behind us. And we didn't reopen for services until around April 2021. So if you actually work back over those years between last year and when Adam came in 2017, about half of that time was taken out. So from his perspective, he hasn't had very long. It looks as though he might have had 5 or 6 years, but he hasn't really. Because he had issues to deal with, then we had COVID to deal with. And Adam was a leader in a big church. He was never overall leader in a church until he suddenly got sent here. And for the first time in his life, he was leader of everything. He was responsible for the direction of the church. He was responsible for everything within the church. And it's been difficult for them, particularly for those who were here with Adam right at the beginning. And I think it's good for us to understand that firstly, we are a very young church in terms of how long we've been going, despite the age of the building and so on. But I think we need to pay tribute to Adam and the people around him right at the beginning, who worked so hard in those early days to accomplish what has been accomplished now was no easy task. And I think we need to thank God for that, because we're now beginning to build on the groundwork that was done then, which leads me nicely into looking back over the last year. And these are by no means all the things that have happened in the year, but just some highlights that came to mind as Adam was going through it, and we talked about it last night. If we look at teaching first, and I think it has to come first, because if we're a brilliant church in so many ways, but we don't have sound teaching from the scriptures, then we might as well go home, not bother, because that's the key. And in the last year, we've been through teaching on the fruits of the Spirit. We looked at the Beatitudes. We looked at the Sermon on the Mount, focusing very especially in the early part of this year on what it means to take Jesus seriously and follow him as a disciple, because that's what his calling is for us. We took time out in the middle of that to look at loving people towards Jesus. And it struck me as I was thinking about that this afternoon, I need to reread the book. And it's probably a book we need to reread. Each of us needs to reread every couple of years or so, because it's so easy to forget, isn't it? One of the things that has continued over from the previous church here was Little Pines. And in fact, that celebrates its 50th anniversary very soon, not sure exactly when. And it's interesting that one of the mothers that started it is now a grandmother and is helping in Little Pines, which is brilliant. A few weeks ago, we had the largest number of children that we can remember, and that was 50 little children in the place, plus at least one parent, or carer, or granny, or maybe sometimes mother and granny. And the place was heaving, but it was really good to see that happening. And there's about 25, I think, on the waiting list at the minute. I think I'm right in saying that the majority, if not all of those, are drawn from BH22 postcode area. Yeah. Because of its popularity, people were coming from Broadstone and places like that, which is great, but it really is supposed to be focusing on our community. And I've heard people say they've been to others in the area, and without any question, this is the best one they've come across. So that's really encouraging. Last year we launched Mighty Pines for those who are 60-ish plus. But I did note it was very interesting that whenever there was food involved, Tom and Adam suddenly put on a number of years because they were always around where the food was. But that's gone really well. We started it with a cream tea on the front lawn last year, and it's gone. I think it's gone from strength to strength. And Anne and Lindsay have done a sterling job in leading that, and I think they've just picked it up and run with it. And they've got great plans for the future. I think you've got a whole year's activities plan, haven't you? Events.
To the end of this year.
To the end of this year.
And then Anne and I have to go for coffee again.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. No pressure. We've still got 3 life groups functioning, and that's good. It would be good to have more, and we need to see more people coming through who can lead those groups, and that's something that we're looking at, because life groups are really important, a very important part of the church's life, and they're where a lot of the pastoral care can be done. Because we're in a small group, we get to know each other, we become more confident with sharing with each other, and we can highlight the problems, pinpoint difficulties that people have. So if you're not in a life group, then can I urge you, please, talk to Adam about joining a life group. One of the things that's close to my heart, because I was a youth leader here many years ago, and we had a really strong youth work at that stage, we started running a young people's work during the year. At the minute we're getting around about 9 people midweek, every other Thursday, and that's being run by a team headed by Alice and Nikolai and Lily. And we need to pray that will continue to grow and blossom. Because of people's generosity, we've been able to set up a church member relief fund for anybody that is struggling financially, particularly at this time, because of the crisis that the country is facing. And that's been really good to know that we are able to help people, not just wish them well and hope something turns up for them. We can actually do something practical. And I know that's happened on several occasions. And in fact, I know a couple of months or so back, Adam was able to help somebody that he met outside the church who was in desperate need of some food for the family. So he was able to help them as well. And of course, the blessing being out there, which we take up to Trickett's Cross. And I think Pinehurst is one of the major suppliers to the food bank up there. If we ever set up a food bank here and stop supplying them, I think they will feel it very strongly. In preaching, so you don't have to listen to the same 3 voices all the time. We've had 3 new people preach for the first time in the last year, Simon and Steve and Tom, and it's really good to hear them, and very refreshing too. And it will be good to see others taking on that role as well. We've been able to dedicate 2 children, and that's great, Clara and Isaac, and I think there's another one coming up in July, so that's brilliant. Because we had 1 baptism which was Charlie at Easter, and that was a great joy and a real. We were disappointed not to be able to be here, but we were tied up elsewhere. Next, Adam had down that we've added another elder, but I think the least said about that, the better. But I have stressed that's only an interim. We need other younger elders as well, because I'm not going to be there that long. So we do need to get other elders. Is that prophetic? And I think one of the exciting things for us is that we've seen a number of new people joining the church and becoming members. And I've been particularly thrilled to hear somebody give testimony one Thursday night at the prayer meeting that they were made to feel so welcome. And that, of course, is so important when we get new people in and we get strangers in. And I was delighted to hear on Sunday, I phoned one of our friends up because I'd not had a chance to speak to them, and her husband wasn't here. And she said, well, I was involved in talking to someone new, and I thought that was more important than talking to you. And I thought that's absolutely spot on, because we can communicate another time. But if somebody comes in and sits here and nobody talks to them, then they'll go home and think, well, nobody cares. And that is so important. Last Christmas, we brought back the ladies' craft event, and again, that was sold out like it was the first time before COVID. Really, these are only highlights. We've had a lot going on over the last 12 months, and there's so much that we can give God thanks for. But, of course, as we shall hear in a minute, we trust that God is going to give us so much more to be going on, so much more to be praying about, and so much more to give him thanks for. But I think it would be good now if we just broke for a minute, and perhaps 2 or 3 people would just like to give thanks to God for his blessings up to this point. Do feel free to take part.
Thank you, Lord, for the blessings of this past year. Not just for the people who have joined us, the people who have led us, but for the building too, which has given us so many opportunities to engage with our community. And we pray, Lord, that by the power of your Spirit we will be emboldened to speak to people, to invite people, and to bring new opportunities for us to bring people to you, Lord, here in this building. So we ask that you pour out your Spirit upon each and every one of us, Lord, and that we listen to your promptings, and that we take action in your name. Amen. Father, I thank you for the work you do in this place. I thank you that one day when I was unwelcome, somebody came in and I welcomed them, and this person said to me, I've come today to refresh my soul. And I thought that was
thank you for taking part. So, I was trying to think how I could build him up, but what more can I say? It's handy.
Thanks, Rob. You can tell who the smartest elder is tonight, can't you? I think in general that is a really well-ironed shirt, Rob. You didn't iron that shirt, did you?
Not this time.
No, that's really good. Putting us to shame. Thanks for that, Rob. Just kind of picking up from where Rob started, I think it's worth sharing. As leaders, we really feel that the church is in a really good place, and I think it's worth saying that because it can kind of go implied, I suppose. And it's worth saying that to encourage one another, to be lifted up, to be built up. But we do feel it's in a really good place. And you might say, how do you judge that? I suppose from my personal point of view, I look forward to Sundays. In fact, can't wait to come on a Sunday morning. And it's probably a long time since I've said that. And the kids love it. And I'm sure a lot of people here would probably say the same thing. They really look forward to Sundays. But of course, our bar in terms of if we're in a good place or not is Jesus being glorified, is he being worshipped. And that's really feeding into our aims, our vision for our next steps. And the other thing I just wanted to share with you is kind of a word I had in a leaders meeting recently, which was that as a church, and Rob said already about our story, it felt to me like we're in a similar position to Noah, in the sense he was tasked to build this boat out of faith, and he was ridiculed, and he had all of this work to do. And it's felt like over the past 5-6 years, that's what we've been doing. And it feels like we're in a place now where God's ready to really use us, and use us quite powerfully. And he has used us already, but I just really feel that we're in a position as a church now where we're ready to almost just explode. And I think that's quite exciting. So I think it's worth saying and encourage everyone that we do as leaders think we're in a really good place. And hopefully you agree. And if you don't, you can ask questions to Adam later. So we're going to look forward now. And I'm just going to touch on a few kind of main bits. This isn't everything we want to do this year. These are just some key things we want to do. So the first of these is an administrator, and Adam's not really mentioned an administrator to anyone at all. He's not mentioned it at all. It's not like he mentions it every Sunday that he wants an administrator. So we all know that Adam needs an administrator and wants an administrator, and we need an administrator for the church. So that's a really key thing and a key appointment that we need to be praying for as a church. And it's going to be really important for the life of this church and the health of this church. And it's an integral role, mainly in supporting Adam, but also the wider church as well. So having that role filled in the near future is a really important one for us as a church. Hopefully we will do that in the next couple of months, and then after we've done that, we're looking to add a family worker. And we've spoken about a family worker as well already this year. Someone who can help us with kids' work, help us with, creche, kids, youth, but also add a pastoral role as well to the church, someone who can look after and integrate new families into the church. So another really key role that we're looking to fill, something that I don't think we've ever had at Pinehurst, certainly not in the last 5 years. And again, it's a sign almost of the health of the church at the moment, that we do need that position. If we weren't adding numbers and we weren't adding young people, then we wouldn't be needing that role. So that's another positive, but something to please pray for. And that's certainly another next step and aim for us this year. So the next thing that we're looking for this year is, of course, growth in God. So I've mentioned that already in terms of how do we know we're in a good place. We measure that by the glory that we're bringing to God. And we want everyone in our community to follow Jesus and to do the best that they can do, really. And part of that is serving on a Sunday. And we have some amazing service in this church, absolutely incredible. I'm amazed by what people do in this church. So first of all, massive thank you to each and every one of you for what you do. It doesn't go unnoticed, and thank you so much. But of course, there's still need in the church. There always is. In every church, there's still need. And I suppose our encouragement today is to think of it yourselves, think in your families. What do you serve in? Are you happy doing it? We wouldn't want you to do it if you're not happy. Is there something else that God's calling you to? Can you take on something else that perhaps you haven't done before? So we want to encourage everyone to play their part, because we believe that's the picture that we see in the Bible as a body, that everyone plays their part. Everyone has a gifting from God. Everyone has a purpose and a role to play. So serving is really important. Please do pray about that yourselves. Think about what you're doing and whether you can pick up something else that perhaps you haven't done so far. And I'll come on to that shortly as well, in terms of some key areas of need. The other area that we want everyone to grow in God and bring glory to God is in our prayer lives. I think I'll add worship to that as well. And of course, one way of growing in prayer is attending the monthly prayer meeting. And that's obviously a key monthly date in the diary. But also prayer on a Sunday service. So I'll come on to what we want to add on a Sunday morning. But think about contributions. Perhaps you've never bought a contribution on a Sunday. It could be a prayer. It could be something that you want to pray into on a Sunday. But prayer life is certainly a massive thing that we're looking to grow in this year. And I'd add to that worship as well, because when we're talking about bringing glory to God, we don't want to turn up on a Sunday and just go through the motions. We want to turn up on a Sunday being ready to worship Him. And that means ready to not just sing some songs, it means ready to serve, it means ready to say a kind word to someone, to encourage someone, to build people up. It means all of those things when we come into the building on a Sunday. So I just encourage you in terms of your preparation for a Sunday. I do believe that if we can prepare for Sunday mornings, we can bring more glory to God. The next thing in terms of our growth in God is life groups. And obviously this is a key area in our church life. And we do want everyone to be involved in a life group where possible. And it's not just for the sake of it. It's not just because we want you to attend another evening out. It's because we do believe that that's a key way and a key opportunity to grow intimate relationships with one another. And I'm sure for those of you who are in a life group would testify to that. It's also key for integration. So as our church grows, the main way that we're going to integrate people well is for people to be involved in a life group, because then you have those smaller settings where people can meet people and grow closer together. So our life groups, they are and they will continue to be hugely important in terms of growing deeper relationships with one another. So do pray for our life group leaders and what a fantastic job they do. And do, if you're not part of a life group, do please think about joining one. In terms of what we want to add this year, again, this isn't everything. These are just some key points that we wanted to communicate this evening. Our kids' work. We've spoken about kids' work a lot this year, and again, that is another sign of what a good place we're in. And our kids are incredible, aren't they? In terms of the numbers we have, it's amazing the amount of kids that we have on a Sunday. So we now get about 25 kids on a Sunday, which is pretty amazing. And we want to multiply the teams that we have. And as we all know, our kids' workers do an amazing job, but they're very stretched and do need support. And we need more people. We need more people to form another group, ideally from September, because we have kids in creche who need to move up to kids' work, and then therefore we need another group and more people to serve. And the question is could that be you? Could it be you? Is that something you thought about? Is it something you prayed about? And if not you, can you think of anyone who would do that and you want to share that with one of the leaders? But I just want to ask everyone to really pray for that, because I really do think of all the priorities that we have at the moment, kids is right up there. It's right up there. And this isn't an issue that's going away, and it's one that we don't want to go away because we want more kids. We want this to be a bigger problem. So please do think about this very carefully, do pray about it very carefully, and bring this to God in your quiet times. And let's hope and pray that by September, the aim will be to have another group so that we have more capacity for more kids to come in, because we want more kids to come in. Of course we do. So that's a huge one, adding another kids' work group from September. I've mentioned about growing in prayer, and that links into another one of our aims this year, which is to add a prayer team on a Sunday morning. It's something which has been in our hearts for a while now, to help people that need prayer on a Sunday morning, because often people will want to respond as a result of worship or respond as a result of the preach. And at the moment, we do try and encourage that, but I think having a designated prayer team would just facilitate that a lot better. So that is something that we want to add, and I think we will add that shortly. And again, if that's on your heart to be part of that, then do come forward. It will hugely bless you and many of us on a Sunday morning. I've spoken about life groups, and one of the aims that we also have is to add 2 more life groups this year. So obviously as we grow as a church, we want to get more people into life groups, and at the moment, not everyone is in a life group, and so then, at the moment we're just about coping, but we do need 2 more, at least ideally, because we want everyone into a life group. We want to add a daytime group as well as another evening group, so that we're able to reach everyone and everyone's able to be part of a life group. And of course, to make that happen, we need more leaders. So again, if that's something that you've prayed about, thought about, and it's on your heart, then do come and speak to one of the leaders about that. So 2 more life groups is another aim, and it's a big ask, but we believe that in God, He will provide the people to make that happen. And finally, I suppose another key thing that we're aiming for here, as a result of getting a new administrator, hopefully having a family worker, is to release Adam to spend more time doing the things that we think he should be doing. Obviously, at the moment, he's tied up doing things that he shouldn't be doing in terms of the admin and a lot of the other bits that he shouldn't really be spending his time on, not because it's not important, but because part of Adam's role as the senior elder is to be developing and equipping leaders and everyone really across the church, so from group leaders to the leadership team. So that's what ideally where we would get to, that we would have people in the right positions so that we can free Adam to do the things that he needs to do and should be doing to really push us forward. So that's all I wanted to say, but I suppose just to leave you with, again, just reiterate, we're really pleased with how things are going, but we know in God there's so much more, and we believe and know that He is faithful and He will provide the resources that we need to move forward with Him this year. Thanks, Adam.
You talk about the dress code, I'm bringing it down another level, so I haven't even got shoes on now, so just got to hope I don't stand on any raisins that were left from Little Pines in here this morning. So yes, anyone with questions on that before I rush on? Once again, don't worry if you don't recall it all. I say it's been recorded. I'm going to email it out to everyone so you can listen back and things like that. But do ask questions. And so far, these next steps that we've heard about are really what I'm going to call they were the easy next steps. Okay? Now we're getting onto the real, probably big next step. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the building project. Now, for some of you might think, well, I've not been here that long. What is the building project? And so let me take you back some way. So back in approximately 2018, 2019, we felt God was leading us to extend the front of the church building out and to add a kind of coffee shop area in the front and to make it a more welcoming space where people can see in. If you look at the front of our building, it doesn't scream welcome. It's all very much brickwork. And the doors, and it's just the design of the doors when they're put in, but if you look at them, they look like prison bars. So it doesn't say welcome to the local community. And the amount of people who've lived in the village for a long time who've said, I've driven past, but I didn't really know you were there. It's like, well, that's a bit of a worry, isn't it? And so we started thinking, well, we've got a real heart to reach the community, and actually this building is a way of doing that. It's not the only way. The best way is all of us. However, the building facilitates some of that. I mean, pre-COVID, I worked out that across a year, just with hirers alone, we were getting about 10,000 people through the building a year. Since COVID, we've seen hirers, we've added more groups. So to give you an idea, we've got Slimming World in at the moment. They hire a room. Tomorrow morning, I've got a Dorset Council parenting course. On Friday, we have a dance school which hire every single room. It's literally mental in here on Friday afternoon, and great fun. And then on Mondays, we've got Monday now. I had a baby massage group start this week, which was really exciting if you have a baby. And also at the same time as them, there's a charity called Home Start Wessex who help families and things in need, and they're doing a school readiness program. So these people will hire rooms, but they're people who are coming into our building, and that's amazing. It's like, what's the point of having a building like this and having the door shut? Whereas the more people we get through, they've already then taken the first step to go, I know what it looks like on the inside. So then if they think about coming on a Sunday, or one of us meets them and invites them, they already know what it looks like. And one of their maybe fears has been answered. And we want to do more and more. And also on Tuesday we have another dance group in, which starts off with ballet and ends up with line dancing fitness and samba fitness. I can't keep up with it all. And so it's the build, and we've still got room for more, should we want more. And that's really exciting. But I'm thinking, well, God, you're bringing these people in, but now we want to start seeing, how can we use this building to reach the community more and more and more? And I want to provide a window into the building. And so the idea is we're going to build out, we're going to knock down where the office currently is, which is pretty much condemned if you see the mould on the ceiling in there, which is why I now work from home or in the lounge. And we're going to glass front it. The idea is the toilets here will disappear because there's only one of each toilet, and if the church keeps growing, you're going to be queuing longer and longer on a Sunday morning. And so we will then, where the lounge is, that will turn into half of the room will become the office, and the other half will become a toilet block where you've got more facilities for male, female and accessible users. And so it's just making the building a little bit more fit for purpose and reorientating, because even like the office doesn't need to be at the front of the building. It can be in the middle of the building. What I'd rather have is people can look in if they walk past and see life in the building. And by having a coffee shop area, it doesn't mean we're opening a coffee shop where we're going to sell coffees, but it gives us a space where we can do things in and where people can see there's life in here, and hopefully it will attract more and more people in, because that is our heart. So mission is what has driven a lot of this. And so the reality is, back in that sort of 2018 time, we put in some plans. If you want to know what it looks like exactly, it's on the notice board just outside. We were granted planning permission. Then obviously COVID hit and got in the way, and so everything got shelved at that point, because it was like, there's no point pushing this at the moment. People have got other worries, such as how to get food and medicine and things like that. But then once all that eased a bit, we went to the next stage, which was to go for building regs, which we were granted conditional building regs just over a year ago. And the condition was we then needed to get our structural engineering drawings done. I've learned so much about building projects by just doing this. And it turns out our structural engineer would not sign off his drawings without having a soil sample. And so I've had to pay £2,500, not me personally. The church has had to pay £2,500 for someone to dig a hole 4 metres down to send soil to a lab to probably turn around and say it's soil. But this is the only way to get these regs signed off. And that's taken me a long time, so I disputed that with the structural engineer, but he said it needed to be done. And so that will hopefully come back from this soil company in the next couple of weeks. And that is the final step to having everything we need, because at that point we can then go out to tender. Now, I'm not expecting this to be cheap. This is going to be expensive. It's going to cost us a lot of money. But we believe it's the way that God is leading us as a church. And when we brought this to the church back, we started planning it, it was met with a great response by the church. And yeah, that sounds like a good thing. That sounds like something we can do. And so we will go out to tender. And once we've gone out to tender, we will then look to, once we've found a company which we think is the best one to go for, we'll come to the church. We'll bring all the information to the church. We'll take you every step of the way. And we'll keep talking to you. So we've not talked about it for some time, partly because not a lot has happened. But now we want to start talking about it a bit more, because we believe this is going to be one of our next big steps to go for. What it also does is by adding a kind of a coffee shop area on the side there, is the idea is you've got big bifold doors that it almost means people can sit out there if they're a bit uncomfortable coming in here on a Sunday. So if you get guests come in and don't want to come in this bit, they can see from out there. And it expands that space that we can use, which also gives us more room for growth, which seems to be what God is doing at the moment, as Rob alluded to. Probably one of lowest attendances since I came, and a number of people moved on was about 50, but we're now getting somewhere between 80 and 90 on a Sunday, which is exciting. And the reality is, if God keeps growing in that sort of way over the next few years, we're going to need to think about more space. And so this is part of that. And so once that happens, we've got to tender, we'll take you every step of the way. We will come out for one of your favourite weeks, which is a gift week, where we bring it to you again and see about what it is to give towards a building project. And then we'll look to see how much more we need to finance it. Just, we've already got just over 80,000 in the bank already from previous gift weeks, so it's not like we've got nothing. We've already had one grant come through already, which technically runs out next July. So I've either got to build it quickly or ask for an extension. But we will look for more grants as well, and then we'll explore options. If we haven't got all the money come in, we'll explore, do we look at loans? Do we look at what are the different ways we can try and finance this? What we're not going to do is look to hamstring the church, but what I'm also not going to necessarily do is wait till I have every single penny in the bank, because then it's not a step of faith, then it's a step of certainty. And so this is going to be a big step of faith, and if we were going, we think this is right in God, then there'll come a point where we might need to take a step forward without having all the money in the bank at that particular point. And so once that's happened, we will start building. And so I think that's going to be really exciting. I think that's going to be a way that will also draw the community in, because the amount of people will be looking, going, what's happening? I think it creates more opportunity for us to reach local people. But the best thing we can do about that right now is to pray. And we're not going to do that now, but we'll spend some time praying at the end, because I really am convinced that this could open doors for us even more into the community. I mean, a lot of our hiring now, say some of those new hirers, they're all coming through Dorset Council, which is really, Dorset Council basically found us and love us as a building. The ironic thing is they've got a Sure Start Centre just around the corner at the middle school, which they shut because they can't afford to keep their buildings open. But Dorset Council love this building, and so they're now hiring spaces here. I don't understand how their finances work, but it means for us, we're getting loads of people through that we want to reach. Imagine if you had a coffee shop area where you did put on lunch some days when you knew these groups are in, and you might find some of the people who come to these groups stay for lunch, and it's just another step. And that for me is exciting. So we need to be praying, because I want to see this community and the communities around us transformed. And I really think this building can be a great facility for that. I now want to just spend a few minutes talking about finances. I have produced some little charts for you to look at. This is what you really came for tonight, isn't it? And whenever I talk about finance, I want to talk about it in terms of investing, not spending. Because if we talk about it in terms of spending, you think, what's he wasting money on now? Whereas if we talk about what we're investing in, then I think we see the bigger kingdom picture of it. And just so you know, when it comes to things like this, I don't know who gives to the church. I don't access the accounts. I couldn't tell if any of you give, because I don't want to treat any of you differently whether you give or not. So I don't know. All I see at the end of the month is the figure. That's all I see. But what I want to do is paint a little bit of a picture for you of the journey we've been on over the past few years. 2020 screws it up a little bit because of COVID. So building hire was down massively that year. But in general, what I want to paint is a picture of growth to you. And so what you'll see is building hire. If you didn't have 2020 in there, if you look at 2021 to 2022 on building hire, that's a very large increase on hire. Very large increase. And we've got a few more hirers this year than we did last year. And this is exciting for me, because not only is it people in the building, but it also now means the building funds itself. I said last year we were going to get there, but this year we're going to go beyond. So what it now means is the building not only funds itself in terms of your insurances, your cleaning, everything that needed to run a building, it now puts money back into the church for mission, which is surely what we want. But we've had to work hard at that, because you'll see, only in 2019 we were down at sort of 10,000. So we've worked hard at that, because I see this as an asset. If you use it right, it can be a real blessing to you. But then I also want you to notice the total giving numbers. Every year it has gone up. Now this is a great sign for me. It's one indicator of the health of a church, only one indicator, because money is not everything, but people don't give to what they don't believe in. You wouldn't give to something you didn't believe in. And the fact that we're going up shows two things. One, that we've got people who believe in the direction of the church, and two, the church is probably growing because numbers are increasing. Now they won't increase forever. We'll hit a point where we probably plateau, and that's okay. But at the moment, those numbers are going up and up and up, which is a really good trend to be on. Any of you that are financial in the room, you can't tell me that's not positive in any way. And what that now means is it means we can do more with that money. You know, we can invest in different ways. So even in this room, one of the things I invested in recently is we got new square lights on the roof. And you might think, why? Well, I'm future-proofing the building. It's now all LED. We hire this room out, and when these circular lights were all in, they don't work anymore. I've just left them in the ceiling. It used to cost £3 an hour for the lights to be on. And so a hirer would hire this room for 4 hours, and £12 is instantly gone on lighting. Now, for 4 hours, it costs £1.20. So I've had to pay money to get these lights installed, but long term, we're going to make more money. And so it's future-proofing. And you notice throughout the entire building, I've started putting LED lights in. It's all future-proofing. And what it means is long term, we'll have more money for mission, which is what we ultimately want, isn't it? Whereas if we don't have that in place to start with, so I do spend money, but we spend wisely to try and make sure that the future is secure. That's what we're trying to do. So that's our giving, and that's all going in the right direction. But now expenditure, if I can go to that one, you'll see 2020 was down again, but that's COVID was in the way. So let me explain how I split all this down and show you what we're talking about. So mission, when I talk about mission, that's where we give money away to other things outside of ourselves. So for instance, we give some money to Commission, who are part of churches we're a part of, because Commission is a church planting movement. We plant churches, we give money towards that. It also goes towards the people who support us as a church, and it goes towards initiatives we're involved with. So, you know, if you ever want to know more, you look at the Commission website and you'll see things like that. I mean, at the moment, we heard the other day, was it 200 and something churches, I think, in India they've got at the moment. A UK Leaders' Day we're at, but they've got a heart to have reached 1,000 churches in India by 2030, planting churches. We're part of a big family. We don't often see that because we're in West Moors or wherever, Verwood, Ferndown, wherever you're living, but we're part of a big family of churches, and that's exciting. You know, we even heard stories from a couple who have planted a church in Portugal. They've been out there 40 years. They've not seen much growth, but faithfully they've been serving for 40 years. The Commission haven't been paying for them because they've got a church which self-funds, but we're part of a big family from lots of nations, lots of different backgrounds, and that's exciting. So that's where some of that mission stuff goes towards, as well as some other things. We have money set aside for relief. So say a disaster happens around the world, we can put money towards that. But that's giving away. Training and equipping. So things in there include resources we need as a church, or if we go through series where we buy books in, or when we go to Commission Festival. This is all part of training and equipping. Or say you came along and said, well, I'd like to do a training course for what I'm doing in the church. We might be able to help you with that, because that's a big part of who we are. We as a church, it can't, like Rob, I think, alluded to, or Andy, one of the two, it can't, I need to devote my time to developing more people. It can't revolve around me. If the church revolves around me, it will fail. Okay? It will, because look at me. All right? So, yeah, exactly. Right? You can't miss me in this bright yellow shirt. So the reality is we need to train and equip more people, because the more people we train and equip, the more we can do. And it then means if anything happens to me, nothing happens to the church. It can carry on. That is the ideal. And so we want to put money into training and equipping. And so that's something you see. Staff, you'll see the staff salaries have gone up. Part of the reason was back in 2019, we had voluntary admin support, whereas we now have paid, so that's gone up. But once again, I want you to think of staff not just as wages, but actually fulfilling the mission. Because If you want me to do the work you want me to do, and the time you want me to give, I can't do that if I'm stacking shelves in a supermarket as well as doing. You have to pay for that. That's just part of what it is, and that's not just my salary, by the way. I'm not just exposing what I get paid. Okay, that also includes administration and our cleaner. So it's got three things in there, and so that's what's included in there. But once again, that'll go up again if we're looking to take admin from 2 days to 3 days and a family worker for 2 days. But this is investing, not spending, investing in how God is growing the church. God seems to be bringing more kids, like Andy said, so we want to invest in a family worker to help facilitate that work. And who knows where that next staff member may come from. If all of a sudden a particular group of people come through, we might need to invest in a member of staff to help with that area of church life. So we're trying to react to what God is doing. Buildings. So as you saw last year, we made 16,000 from buildings. Last year we only spent 12,000 on buildings. So once again, our building has made us some money, which then we can put back into the mission, which is fantastic, is what it's all about. And also as you upkeep a building more regularly, your costs come down. Whereas if you don't do anything for a few years, it ends up in ruin, and then you've got to spend more to repair it. And so we've worked quite hard over the past few years, spending money. Even this week, I've not told anyone this yet, I had a meeting about solar panels. So I'm not saying we're going that way, but I'm just really excited to find out, because we can fit enough solar panels on the roof of this building where on current rates we could generate £8,000 to £10,000 back a year. Now, of course, you've got to pay a lot of money to get them on the building. However, you're kind of thinking, well, long term, if you could find the cash to put them up there, you could move all your gas central heating to electric heating, your whole building would run off your solar panels, and you'd get 8 to 10 grand back. So this is how I think. So you might think that's a bit weird, but I think like that because I want this place, all of this, to outlive me, and one day, and someone else to take something on in a healthy place. So, but buildings we invest. So don't worry, you're not going to see solar panels anytime soon. That was just an exploratory thing. Administration, when I say administration, that's not salary, that's what we pay to run the office. Now the good news is, and like my good friend Sean once said to me, administration is not sexy, and so you don't like seeing lots of money spent on administration because you'd rather see money spent on mission or reaching out to people. The reality is you need administration, but the good news is, once again, if you look at the administration costs, they're coming down because we're becoming more effective as an office. We buy less paper, we print less things, which means we save costs. We do things more efficiently, more effectively, and what it ultimately means is we save money, so once again we can put more money into reaching more people, which is what we all want. And so, you know, I could break that all down for you if you really wanted to, but you don't really need to know how much I spend on stuff in the office. But my hope is that will keep coming down till we get to a nice low level, which funds. And we did simple things like when I first came, we used to hire a printer every year, one of these giant printers, but it was just like, do we really need to spend about £1,000 a year on that? And so we ended up buying a commercial printer for £150, £300. Thanks, Alice. £300. But even if we bought a new one every year, it would still be cheaper than hiring one. And so it's like, and so we worked quite hard at bringing down costs, because if you can make things run efficiently, it helps you with the mission of the church, which our vision statement is to see lives transformed, transforming their community. That's where we really want the money. But there are certain overheads. And then ministries, you'll see, ignore COVID, but we're starting to go back up again. 2021, and we added more. And that's everything we do, whether it's Little Pines, Mighty Pines. We've got money there to put towards it. Ladies, men's, whatever it might be, we have money there, kids' work, all of that. And that's one of the ones you want to see growing, because you want to do more as a church. You want to put more resources behind things so that you get bigger and better with what you're doing. And so the way I look at this is going, well, the right budgets are growing and the right budgets are shrinking. And so ultimately what you see is while the expenditure is increasing, if you go to the next slide, you'll see the dark green line is the income. That's increasing more than the expenditure. So in the COVID year, we were pretty much identical. The year before COVID, we made a loss. But since then, we have made more than we have spent. And we have worked very hard to do that. Because you give to the church generously, and I'm really grateful for that. But that means we've got to be good stewards with what you give. Because if, you know, I've often joked with the leaders about me having like a gold throne on the stage or something like that. You know, if I came one week and I had a gold throne on the stage, or, you know, even when I saw the coronation, if provide lots of gold plates hanging on the wall when you turn up one Sunday, you'd think he's not spending our money wisely. And you'd be right, I wouldn't be. But you want to see actually that what we're giving is actually trying to work towards the mission of the church. Because then you're more likely to think, actually what they're doing is good. And so, I mean, you look at that for me, and if those lines carry on like that, I mean, last year we were 13,000 better off. But when I first came to the church, the previous 3 years, all of them were a loss. And so we've worked very hard to turn it round. And so that has meant we've had to invest in places, but hopefully what it means is we'll now start to see the income every year above the expenditure. Because also, when it comes to a building project, if we have to go down the loan route or something like that, people will want to see figures like that and see actually you've got a greater income than expenditure. We're happy to give you a loan because we can see you're going to be able to pay it back. Have we got any questions? Because I've just told you an awful lot of information and you're probably all ready for sleep or going home and watching something on TV. Any questions?